Colleen Shell here. I need to get on the live to share some stuff that is coming up for me. And one of the things that I'm noticing about my life is that there are circumstances that happen, things that happen to me that seem out of my control. And there's a saying that everyone loves to say about, how your life works out is less about your circumstances, but how you react to those circumstances. And I love this. I love this idea because it's like I can see it in my own life. But what's more interesting to me is I'm wondering why that is happening. So I thought I would take a moment and just dig into that because it sounds really good, right? Like, oh, right, it's not what happens to me, but how I react to what happens to me that has my life work out. And I'm sure you've experienced in some ways, it's like, wow, that happened and I reacted very powerfully to that. And then it seemed to work out. And I'm sure there's other times when you look back in your life when you're like, oh, that happened to me and I reacted unpowerfully and it didn't go the way I wanted to go. Like I really suffered. So I wanted to just dig into this to see like if we can unpack it so that we can use this more powerfully as opposed to just like, oh, logically that makes sense or like, oh, that feels good. One of the things that I've been taught in my emotional intelligence and transformational education is how our human machinery works. Our human machinery works in very specific ways. Like we don't put a sandwich in our ear, we put a sandwich in our mouth. That's how we know it's going to be digested. But there's other parts that are hidden to us, from us, that how our human machinery works that dictates what happens to us. And specifically, I'm going to be talking about the subconscious brain. The subconscious has a huge power over us because if our brain had to think as much as it did, like logically, it would be exhausted all the time. So we have this like backup system that runs programs for us that allows our brain to rest. But those programs tell us how to show up, how to react, what things mean, what things don't mean. The challenge is that those programs were created when we were young, which means that our programming was created mostly by an upset 7-year-old. And how we see the world and how we react to the world is from that point of view, but it's hidden from our view. We don't know that that is happening. So something happens to us and we react very similar because our brain is like, oh, this is like what happened last time. One of the ways that we can see this to be true is because of the patterns that we have in our life. You can see that, you can see that you're dating the same type of person, the same flavor person, or you can see like, oh, this always happens to me. That feeling of this always happens to me. I always have the dickhead boss. So that's because our programming is running us. So what's great about the brain is it can be programmed. What's not so great is it has been programmed from an upset 7-year-old. But we have the chance now to program our brain to see the world as it's really happening, not from the filter that we created from the past. If we constantly see from the filter from the created from the past, we're constantly going to get the same type of results. So that's why something happens, we react. It doesn't seem like we have choice. One of the key teachings in emotional intelligence is this idea that we create a space between the emotion and the action. Usually we just react to things. We don't choose to get angry. We just get angry. We don't take a time to pause to ask, why am I getting angry? Even a better question is, why are there angry feelings in my body? So we attach emotions like they are us. This is another thing the human machinery does, like I am angry. And when you identify so closely with something, it's very hard to step away from it. So when you start using language like, I'm feeling anger in my body, then you can be like, okay, that's interesting. Why am I so angry? Now, if we take the idea of being angry in traffic, sometimes you're in traffic, you're not angry. Other times you're in traffic, you're very angry. And if we start looking at the different circumstances that are happening in traffic, usually when you're not angry in traffic, you feel free. You feel like you're on top of things. It doesn't really matter that you're in traffic. Things are going to work out. Other times you're in traffic and you're thinking to yourself, this always happens to me. I'm going to be late. Oh my God, I fucked up because I didn't spend enough time. I didn't give myself enough time to get to where I want to go. So all these things that we say to ourselves create this emotion. And then our emotion creates our actions. So then we get angry and then we react from that anger. And if you look about what's going on behind the emotion, you can see that there are thoughts and beliefs behind the emotion that are driving it. And when you start to see that and witness that, you start to have choice on how you're going to react to a certain circumstance or situation. When you see things like this come up, this always happens to me. Oh, that's an interesting thought. Is it true? Can I find evidence of it not being true? Or sometimes am I on time? Yes, I am on time. But my brain automatically goes to, this always happens to me. And then when I think that, what emotion comes up is anxiety, disappointment, anger. Then because I have that emotion, certain actions are dictated from that emotion. So now anger, disappointment, and anxiety is driving me and creating my actions. And my actions create my results. So the biggest challenge around emotions and why understanding emotions and beliefs are so important is because they have a direct impact on your results. So let's say that what you're really committed to is being somebody who brings love and joy into the world. Like that's just who you want to be. Like I want to bring love and joy into the world. That's what I'm committed to. But you find yourself doing other things. You find yourself getting angry, what people call getting triggered. Getting triggered is a feeling in the body where emotion comes up very quickly, and it's usually because it's something you haven't dealt with in the past. So someone else is reminding you of something that you haven't dealt with in the past, and then you're reacting to that. So you're actually not even reacting to the person in front of you. You're reacting to something in the past. And it's very challenging because it's hidden from our view and we don't know it. And one of the things to really bring on for yourself and what's helped me kind of shift out of just being a reaction and actually choosing my reaction is the compassion I have for myself. The compassion I have for that young girl who made that decision about herself and life and the world and how she was trying to make it and she was trying to be okay and trying to get love. And that young girl programmed me. And so when I understand, like, oh, honey, yeah, I get it. I understand that you would react that way. I totally understand that you would make up this always happens to me, or it's never going to work out for me, or I'm unlovable, or I'm unworthy because of this one situation that you had to deal with. And when I bring compassion to myself, I can see like, well, of course I was acting like an a-hole in that situation. I was triggered, but I have to be responsible now that I was triggered. Someone said words, they just said words, and I'm reacting aggressively or negatively or sad or upset. And they're doing what they're doing, but if I don't take on that, hey, I'm being triggered, I'm always at the affect of what other people are doing, and I don't have choice. So when we talk about our life works out better when we understand it's not our circumstances that have our life turn out, it's how we react our life turns out. We can see that to be true, but the pathway to reacting more appropriately to situations is really understanding yourself and self-awareness and giving yourself that compassion. That, right, of course I reacted to this way. Okay, great. Now, as an adult, as a mature person, knowing that what I believe is actually not true. A belief is a thought that you think over and over again and call it the truth. That's all it is. A belief is a human construct. No humans, no beliefs. But it's something that we think over and over again. It's programmed into our brain. Now, again, this is good news because if we've done it once, we can do it again with a belief that actually serves us. And how I take that on is I start looking at beliefs that don't serve me, that have me feel crazy, that have me react like a maniac out in the world. And, one of those beliefs for me is that I'm not valuable. And when I start seeing like, oh, I'm not valuable, and that gets triggered when someone says something to me like, Colleen, you did this wrong, or I don't like this. They're just saying these words and I'm like a big F you, how dare you? Because what's running in the background is I'm not valuable. So they're touching that part of me that doesn't feel great. And so because I'm unpacking this and recognizing this, I can now work with it. I can say, okay, well, I could scream and yell at them. I've done that before. That didn't really work. Didn't get me the results that I wanted. Or I can say, really listen to what they're saying from a place of a new belief. And that belief can be just not even far away from I'm not valuable. We don't want to go too radical, like I'm hugely valuable, because the subconscious brain can really bat that one around. But what if you just went to like, you know what? I make a difference. And when you start saying I make a difference, what I have done is start looking for evidence of me making that difference. So the new belief I want to seed in my subconscious is that I make a difference. And then I look around. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that time I sat with my friend and I shared with her and I gave her love and she was really upset and I was able to help her through something that was really tender for her. Or I remember that I paid for the guy behind me at San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge so he didn't have to pay the toll. I remember that I, worked with the orphanages in Guatemala or whatever that is for you. Once your brain starts seeing evidence that that new belief is true, it starts to grow. And what happens is that I'm not valuable becomes smaller. I'm not saying it goes away. You won't really know if it ever goes away until, you realize at the end of your life, oh, that didn't trigger me anymore. Because as you evolve and grow and become bigger and navigate this life, you don't know when that's going to be triggered again because things change. You get a new job, you get a new partner, you have kids, you're reacting to new things. But it definitely becomes smaller, and what becomes stronger is I make a difference. Now, instead of me reacting from I'm not valuable, now I'm reacting from I make a difference. Now, Colleen, who's not valuable, acts in a very specific way. Colleen, who makes a difference, acts in another very specific way. If someone comes up to me and says, Colleen, that doesn't work, the Colleen that makes a difference gets curious. Oh, well, what do you mean that's not working for you? Tell me more about that. The unvaluable Colleen would just be like, whatever, really triggered and be like, it's not me, it's you, and doing that whole blame game. So when I realize that I'm reacting in ways that I don't want to be reacting, the best thing for me to do is to look, what do I believe about the world? And what do I believe is true that I would be reacting this way in this circumstance? What would I have to believe is true for me to be sad right now? What would I have to believe to be true to feel angry, anxiety, upset? Oh, I'd have to believe that I'm unlovable. Oh, I would have to believe that that person is trying to hurt me consciously. Like you can start seeing like, oh, and then questioning, is that belief true? Is this something that I really want to take forward with me? Or do I want to question and create a new belief? So this is how you start understanding That it's not the circumstances, but the reactions to the circumstances that have your life work out. Because circumstances we don't have a lot of control over. Life just comes at us. It's just like a roller coaster. We all feel it. We're all on this roller coaster together. Sometimes we're feeling really great and empowered and inspired, and sometimes we're feeling very low and anxious and upset and wondering if we're ever going to make it. When we start questioning what's happening in the background, that roller coaster becomes less peaked down and up. Because life, a lot of us want to experience life in these peak experiences that we have in life. And yes, these peak experiences are so beautiful. When the baby is born, when you're saying, I do, when you get that job, that you really want, or you get the promotion. Those are the peak experiences, where you climb Mount Everest. I know some people are having some major peak experiences. You go through something physical. But most of life is lived on this plateau. And how you dance on that plateau is very important. It dictates the quality of your life. So even though you're on a plateau, your plateau might be here. When you start becoming responsible for your reactions, you elevate your plateau. So now you're on an elevated plateau where life is more joyous, more alive, more juicy, more loving, more open, more curious, as opposed to just being dictated by something from the past, by these decisions that you made from the past. All right, so I hope that has helped you just really understand about how your life is not your circumstances, but how you react to those circumstances, and to use this information, not just be like, oh, that sounds good, but actually use it to empower yourself in your life. And, mostly I'm talking to most people about relationships and how you can have a more connected relationship with your lover, but also everyone in your life when you start taking responsibility for your reactions. And what's really great about it is when you start taking responsibility for your reactions and you give yourself that space to think, how you react changes, and then you're able to create the magic that everyone loves so much in life. You're able to navigate people off the cliff. You take yourself off the cliff, you take other people off the cliff. And now you guys are sitting next to a campfire, sharing stories. Heart to heart, you guys are relaxed, warm, and playful. This is what happens when you start taking responsibility for your reactions. And this is why I'm such a stand for love and connection. Because once we take responsibility for our reactions, love automatically arises. Love for ourselves and love for others. Because we have compassion, we have empathy. We understand that we are just in this human body that does certain things. It's not our fault. But just because it's not our fault doesn't mean we can't take responsibility for it. It's not our fault, and it turns out it's not anybody else's fault. It just is. It just is how our human machinery works. And when we take away the blame game and trying to figure out who is at fault or what is at fault, love arises. And now we're reacting from love. And when you react from love, you just create so much magic. So I'm going to stand for this because this is what I want for people in their life. I want them to be creating the magic, because when they create the magic, they create a whole different type of world. The world is not going the way that we want it to go right now. And again, it's a reflection of how our machinery works and not understanding how our machinery works. So when we start understanding this thing that we're in, we can start playing with it more. We can start taking actions that really matter to us. And now we have a world that looks drastically different. Like, I don't even know what it looks like when everybody comes from love. What is the world going to look like? It's a whole new thing. I can't even use my imagination to see. But I do know it's going to be phenomenal. All right, you guys, if you're interested in having more love and joy and being the magician in your life, not waiting for anything or anybody else to be the magician, but you're the one who is bringing the magic, reach out to me, because I have got some amazing magical tricks and formulas that you can use in order to empower your relationship and the people that you love.